All right, all right, all right. Hey y'all, how y'all doing out there in YouTube land and kick your butt out land? This is Paul, your hip hop relationship and recovery coach, bringing to you another kick your butt out episode. As usual, before we get off into this powerful content we want to talk about today, I got to say what I always say, and I strongly encourage you to hear this with your brain instead of your ears so that you can incorporate this into your lives. And that is, if you're looking for a butt, it's going to always, always, always be easy to find one. And that, my friends, is a promise. All right. So without further ado, I want to introduce my special guest here. This guy, I've been knowing this brother for 3 years, a little over 3 years now. He's definitely a godsend. He's a brother, a friend, a confidant, an ally. He's a whole lot of things to me. Definitely a supporter of Kick Your Butt Out. I definitely appreciate him. And he's also, now watch this, he's coming to a podcast near you. He's coming to a YouTube channel near you. This guy is also a coach, and his name is Coach Pete. So without further ado, I want to welcome to everybody in YouTube land, Kick Your Butt Out land, Coach Pete.
Love it. I love it.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So, Coach Pete, tell the Kick Your Butt Outers, the YouTubers, a little bit about yourself, bro.
So, married with 2 kids. I think it's been about three and a half years.
Yeah.
Met in a small group.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, you know what? One of the reasons I was like really pushed and moved to become a coach was because of you. I saw what you did, Dan, and I appreciate you having me on. Like every time I see you on a podcast, I really do. I'm really proud of you. I want to say that as a friend,
Thank you.
as a brother. Like I'm really proud of what you're doing, and I love it. This is the lane that God has put me into, and so I'm just here trying to learn. And that's why I got my certification to be a coach, because I have a burden to help men, more so like husbands, and their marriage, and seeing how they can communicate better. That's usually what it is, right? The top of the list is communication in marriage, and a lot of us grow up with bad habits, and we're just trying to change that pattern. So so that's my plan. That's what I hope to do. So
well, I believe that you're gonna do it. You know what I mean? Because again, you talked about that burden that's on your heart. You have a strong burden along with the calling. You can tell, because I've been around the block long enough to understand God and calling, right? I understand, I don't know it all, right? Obviously, Jesus knows it all. However, I've been around the block long enough to understand purpose and calling, and some people's callings, you could just see it. You know what I mean? It just oozes out of them, man. And definitely want to make sure that this is what we do for one another, because our Bible, right, says as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And this is what we are doing for one another. So again, thank you, man, for taking time out of your day to come and do this podcast, this particular episode, because what I want to talk about today, obviously the two of us relate to it, but we want to be able to have some conversations around some things that a lot of you all out there be able to relate to as well. And how, because like he was saying, he has a burden to help. Same here with me. How can we help and support one another to move with and in purpose, rather than moving and going nowhere, which is the title of today's podcast. This episode is titled Moving But Going Nowhere. And so, this is what we want to talk about today. And the first subject matter when we talk about moving and going nowhere that I want to mention. I want to take a quote from Les Brown. He's one of my favorite. As a matter of fact, I got one of his quotes on my wall. He's one of my favorite. And one of the things that I heard him say many years ago, he said, Monday mornings is one of the greatest days of depression and one of the greatest days for suicide ideation. And he said the reason why is that many people get up on Monday morning, year after year after year after year, and go to a job that they hate. And that saying something like that and knowing something like that is obviously, again, we're moving, but going nowhere. And so this is what I want to talk about today. From a career standpoint, I remember, right? I remember some of the career paths that I thought was part of my purpose, right? I'm a certified welder by trade. I'm a certified press operator by trade. And I remember, I graduated at the top of my class in terms of welding. And the first job that I got as a welder, good benefits, you name it, all good pay and all of that. And I remember almost immediately realizing that wasn't for me. And I ended up quitting the job and even quitting the field. However, I still was running away from purpose, from that calling that God had on my life to do what he called me to do what he purposed me to do. And going into many other jobs after that, it almost felt like that. It felt like I was moving, but I wasn't going nowhere. There was no joy. There was no sense of purpose. There was no sense of fulfillment. Yeah, I was being able to pay bills. Yeah, I was able to help take care of my kids. Yeah, I was able to help take care of myself. A tax-paying citizen. I'm doing, all of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I still felt empty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I still felt like it was something more that I should have been doing and could have been doing. And it brings me to, I remember it was maybe 2016 or 17, when I was, a few years into this healing journey that I'm on. And the guy he was my sponsor, my recovery sponsor. He ended up being my best friend. And we used to work out together, right? And so one day we were at the gym and I'm benching, and he spotted me. And I'm powerlifting, and out of the blue, like this came. We wasn't even having a conversation around this. What he said, nothing. He said, "Hey, Paul," because at that time I was a quality control inspector at a door company. Good benefits, good retirement, good pay. This was a promise, in terms of me being able to live the American dream, retirement package, 401k.
Yeah.
It was all of that in a bag of chips, right?
Right.
it was all of that, right? And so I'm benching and he spotted me. And out of the blue, he just said, "Hey, Paul, it's a whole lot more to you than being a door inspector." Now I'm in the middle of bench press.
I was just about to say, you put the weights down. What?
Yeah, I had to rack the weights.
Yeah,
Hold on, wait, time out. What
Where'd that come from?
Yeah, where'd that come from? He said, I don't know. And I don't know what you're supposed to be doing. But I do know it's something inside of you that's a whole lot more than this. It's a purpose inside of you that's a whole lot more than what it is you're doing. And I was like, wow. And so it was crazy because when I would, again, this is my early healing and recovery journey. And I remember saying to myself a lot of times, I want to do something to give back what has been given me in terms of the healing and recovery. I said, but I don't know what it is because I didn't want to be a drug and alcohol counselor. And one of the reasons why I didn't, and I was going to school to do that, and I ended up stopping. But the reason why I stopped is because I noticed that the counselors were limited to the office. They couldn't do anything outside of the office. If the counselors had saw one of the clients in Walmart, right, couldn't say nothing to them. And I remember even from my own experiences, I had built some bonds with some of the counselors that I came across along my journey. And after the treatment was over, I couldn't say anything to them outside of those walls. And I was just like that. And many times that was I needed them more outside of the walls than I needed. Yeah. And I know many people that had that same thing, right? And ended up whatever. And so anyway.
So there was limitations.
A whole lot of limitations, right? And so I remember being at home one Sunday watching football, living in Minnesota, watching football. And my ex-wife had come into the living room, and she said, I'm watching TV because obviously she didn't watch football. Excuse me. That's why I divorced her. I should have though. But anyway, she came out the room and she said, I was scrolling through the channels and I ended up stopping on the Kardashians. And she said, she didn't watch that kind of stuff. And she said, for some reason I stopped, and the mother was talking to the son about a life coach. And the son, because the son was having some type of issues, and he ended up having a session with his coach on the episode, right? And she said, immediately her mind said, that's what my husband be doing. So she came out of the room, and she had already looked up some coaching institutions for me to be able to go to and learn how to coach. And I was just like, wow. And so I immediately took the information, finished watching the game, got on my computer, started looking up some institutions. And then I found one that I was just led to go to it, right? And I ended up coaching, taking classes to be a coach. And I've been a coach ever since. And I'm saying all that to say this. Now I see what he was talking about. I have a sense of fulfillment. I have a sense of purpose. I understand why I wasn't one of the people, why I'm still here. Part of my purpose is to coach. Part of my purpose is to do some motivational speaking. Part of my purpose is to add value to people. And I've been doing it ever since. That job that I had, I remember going and tell my boss, hey, I'm gonna have to put my 2-week notice in because I'm going to follow my dream. And it was crazy because he was the one. We used to have weekly meetings every Friday, and this one Friday he just said, out of the deep blue, hey, listen, if still right ain't a part of your future, I'm encouraging you to follow your dreams.
That's your boss.
This is our boss. This is the boss.
That's pretty rare. That doesn't happen.
Oh, hold on. When he said that, it was like, okay, wait a minute. Hold on, where is this coming from? Because it was all I worked at a production company. It's all about production. It telling nobody to follow their dreams. And when I went in and talked, after he said that, I said, Paul, I'm gonna have to have a conversation with you. And I went in a couple of weeks later and put my 2-week notice in. And here's what he said. He said, I don't know where that came from. He said, but I got in trouble with corporate because they found out that I mentioned that in the meeting. Wow. So anyway.
You were hearing it from everywhere.
Yes.
You were getting it from everywhere.
Yes. Everywhere. People just, and I was like, oh, okay. Without a shadow of a doubt, you can't get, it's black and white. You can't get past it, Paul. And so that was when I stopped moving, but going nowhere. I started going somewhere then. And one of the reasons why I'm here doing this today is because I walk by faith, right? In spite of being scared, in spite of being afraid, in spite of feeling like I wasn't good enough, in spite of feeling like it's not going to be good enough, they're not going to like it, they're going to talk about me, nobody going to watch it. In spite of all of the excuses and the buts that I created, I remember God said to me, And this was about 5 or 6 months ago. He said, "Are you scared?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yes, Lord, I'm scared." He said, "Do it anyway." And then I heard CJ said, "Do it ugly."
Right.
So here I am.
Right.
so
you were ugly, so it's perfect. You're doing it right.
That's right. That's right. And so when we talk about moving but going nowhere, talk about your experience, whether it's personal or being able to watch other people.
Man, and that's a powerful confirmation for you. Like I remember, you shared that story with us in our groups, and part of that is what inspired me to take a step and move forward, because you guys have really not just inspired me, but you've really talked some encouragement into me, I will say, to look at what you see in me, right? As I begin to grow. Well, let me take it back just a little bit, just to give a little bit of context. Me and my wife went through, which a really rough time in our marriage. We went through a full-on divorce, and it wasn't until then, right? Until a lot of people say rock bottom. That's where God met me. That's where I had to learn to build myself back up with His grace, but a different way.
Mm-hmm.
You were doing it this way. Now I need you to learn to do it my way.
Purpose.
And exactly. And since then, yes, we were obviously cut that divorce off, and we've been, yes, amen. And we've been able to build what we call a different type of marriage. Like, we kind of joke sometimes and we say this is our second marriage, but it kind of is in a sense, because we're doing it God's way, and we're doing a lot of the things that the opposite of what we saw growing up, in terms of some of the bad stuff that, just didn't bear fruit, the way I treat her, the way we communicate, all of those. So in learning all of that, and we're still learning, it's given me, God's put on my heart that burden to really, I've healed your marriage, kind of like you were saying, the recovery thing. I have healed your marriage. Now I need you to go out. That's the purpose I'm giving you. And I really do, just like you talk about that feeling you get when you help somebody, talk somebody through something. And it's not because I know everything. It's just because a lot of the times I've been there for certain situations, right? So I could speak to that, and I'm just encouraging, and I'm just trying to help them move in a different direction, because a lot of us just it's like that toy that keeps, it's going, but it's in front of a wall, just keeps hitting its head, right? And so that's kind of, you were a big inspiration to me to go get my certification, because I'm like, I see what you do, and I'm like, that's what I want to do. It feels good. I get all those feelings when I see what you're doing, and I'm like, I want to do that. And of course, I pray about it. Hey, Lord, if this is your will, and just like you get confirmation from different things, He's opened every door for me to do that. So I'm in the process of doing that.
Amen. Amen.
Hopefully one day, I'm not even going to say hopefully, I know one day I'm going to have all of this. Yeah. I'm going to have a channel, and I'm going to be a guest on his,
That's right.
On his podcast.
That's right.
Trust me. That's right. So I would say I'm in the process of that, but you can absolutely be doing every day of your life, feeling like you're moving, and you're not doing nothing. And you could relate that to any aspect, your work, right? Like you mentioned, those Monday mornings. I've been there.
Talk about, so tell the audience about some of those Monday mornings for you.
And there's times where I still walk through it, So right now, I my career is, I'm a UPS driver. You see us, the little brown shorts, ringing your doorbell, right? Bringing you the goodies. I've been there 18 years. I don't believe that that's the last place I'm going to end up, if that makes sense. Right. Like, yes. While doing that, and again, you could work at a job, and it's a great provider. Yes. Been a great provider for my family. Benefits, pay, all the things, right? Just like you were talking about. Do I wake up wanting to go and loving to do that? I don't. If I'm being honest, But I'm very grateful for it, though, because it has provided us with stability, and again, like you said, provider. But I used to get hung up on that provider. I used to go to work angry because I didn't see anything another option, if that makes sense. So now that I've gotten a couple of certifications under my belt, and I've kind of tasted, I've been able to talk to a lot of husbands, going through stuff, a lot in our small groups and that. And I just feel like he's preparing me for that. When that day comes, it's not here yet, and I'm okay with it. But when that day does come, this is what he's doing. This is the prep time, and when that day does come, oh yeah, it's going to be on after that. You know what I mean? So I feel like it, and that gives me that motivation, I guess you could say, to this isn't it. I may not love what I do every day, but you know what? This isn't it. And all these extracurricular that I'm learning, it's just a means to an end, something else. So yeah, I'm not as depressed, I guess you could say, when I go in on a Monday or whatever, I really do try to take joy in what I do every day. I'm blessed to have another breath of air and an opportunity. Right. So I do look at it like that. And of course, going back to marriage, we've changed a lot of our habits, our communication, the way we raise our kids, our house, all of that. That also makes it a lot easier to go home at night and to love going home at night. Yeah. Whereas sometimes, this is the flip side of it, whether you hate your job or you don't, we'll put all of our energy into our work or extracurricular activities after work, just so we don't got to go home. Yeah. You know what I mean? Ooh. Just so you don't have to go where things aren't good. Yeah. But we don't want to take a step. We don't want to move to fix that. Yeah. And a lot of us don't know how to do it. And that's where we come in, right?
And that's where we come in at. Yep, that's where we come in at.
Tell me about your life. Tell me about what's going on. Yeah. Let me give you some next steps. Right?
Yeah. Where you at and where you want to go. Mm-hmm. I want to talk more about this, because this is definitely part of what this particular episode is going to be about. But you said one thing from a work standpoint that I want to just kind of make sure that I reiterate or enforce with you, so that the audience can know. He talked about being grateful for the job that God has given us until we get to that place. We are never encouraging anybody who listening to this podcast to go and quit your job because you feel like you're not moving. We're not telling you to do that. We are saying that if the job that you're at is not where God wants you to land forever, it's usually a stepping stone.
Right.
So get up, because I did. I learned how to get up and go to that job every day with joy, because I knew that job was a stepping stone to where God was moving me to. Back to the title of the podcast, moving but going nowhere. So I started going somewhere because I knew that, again, this job, just as well as Brother Pete, this job is a stepping stone and a preparation to where I'm going. So we are never telling nobody to go quit your job. Don't y'all go say to kick your butt out, say kick your job out. Please don't do that. So but look at it so now you can change your perspective. You don't have to be depressed when you get up in the morning knowing that you got to go to a job that doesn't have a sense of fulfillment, right? Knowing that now you know that this is a stepping stone to where I'm supposed to be going, and you utilize it from that standpoint, as well as don't stay there. Don't God got all the benefits. All the benefits. So don't stay there. Move if that's what God is telling you to do. So I appreciate you mentioning the gratitude part of it, because we do got to be grateful. We do have to be grateful because He did not have to give us the good jobs that we have. And I remember when I left that job, He told me to go to a job that was less pay and less benefits.
And you're growing up, you're not accustomed to, whoa, no, it's all about more. It's not about less, right?
Yeah, what you mean, God?
So right then and there, that fear, I get it.
Absolutely. That's what He did for me. And so, but I'm grateful that I did take that step, took that leap of faith and went. And so again, we want to make sure that we elaborate on moving and going nowhere from a relationship standpoint as well, because a lot of us are in relationships and we're not going anywhere. And one of the reasons why we're not going anywhere is because we're so focused on. Let me say this right. You had talked about it earlier. How people tend to more often than not come crying to us, saying the devil doing this, that, and the other in my relationship. And my thing to that, my answer to that is the Bible teaches us, right, in the book of James, that that we are tempted and drawn away by our own desires. So that scripture says to us that it ain't always the devil.
Right.
And one of the reasons why many of us continue to move and be going nowhere in our relationships is because we're not looking at ourselves. We're not looking at the stuff that we're doing or not doing that adds to this relationship moving and going nowhere. I was just talking to Coach Pete earlier about the fact that a lot of relationships, soon as the last kid goes off to college, they in divorce court.
That's the biggest one.
And it's because all of those years that you all been together, you've been moving and doing and going nowhere.
Yeah.
You've been moving and going nowhere, and what that means is it's a whole lot of stuff that you all have to deal with individually.
Yes.
And then collectively.
Yes.
We have small group after small group after small group at our church that we see couples or experienced couples coming back with the same issue semester after semester after semester after semester. And you're not wondering why. You need to try to be figuring out why. What's the why behind you continuing to have a butt with your relationship? So go ahead, brother.
I'll speak to that a little bit, because I think the biggest thing that starts that is there's no self-accountability, which also leads to no humility, right? In order for things to change, I think that's just the misconception is we expect our spouse to change first, right? Let's be real. We're selfish people, but that's what we think. Oh, once they change, then I'll change. Once they do this, I'll do this. Once she
moving and going nowhere.
Absolutely. But once she meets my needs, then I'll meet her need, right? It's that whole love and respect. And unfortunately, that's just not ever going to happen. Somebody has to be the first one. And let's be real. The Bible says the man, he should be the leader. He should be the example, right? And then you take it even further. It's like, well, if you go 30 years, 40 years in your marriage, and later on your kids are going to get older, and you're going to expect them to do that with their spouse when it wasn't even taught growing up, right? Like, I mean, it really does speak to your past. It speaks to your childhood and upbringing, and not everybody's is different. And that's the thing. So we have a marriage small group that me and my wife host, and we lead, and that's the biggest thing is kind of going back to basics and figuring out a lot of our arguments that we, go through in marriage. Kids, jobs, all of these things just add its own, right? But when you go back to your own triggers, let's call them, that you get you arguing and fighting, and you just can't seem to get over that hurdle. It's always the same thing, right? That's what we hear a lot when they come in. And a lot of it goes back to, like you said, individual. Like, you got to do your own work. Let God highlight those things, and let's see what we could do. And that's our area as a coach. Let's see what we could do differently to put you on a different, on a different path. Because what you learned, what you grew up seeing, that's not working.
It's moving and going over.
Like the way that your mom treated your dad, that's all you knew. That's all you were taught, or that's all you caught, right? They say that there's more caught than taught usually growing up. So it's just funny to me because we do the same thing. We have to hold ourselves accountable. Like, what am I teaching my kids by the way I treat my wife, by the way I talk to her and respond to her and meet her needs, right? Like all of those things. So I think that's the biggest thing, is going back to that, identifying what kind of childhood you had, right? Well, my parents, and that's the biggest one we see is, well, my parents spent money or saved money like this. Oh, well, my parents did it like this. Well, my parents raised the kids like this. Well, that's going to happen. Everybody's childhood's going to be different. But once you get married, once there's a covenant, once there's a unit, like it's just you and her, at that point, what do we want to see moving forward for our kids, how we raise our kids? Don't get it twisted. We're all going to hear it from the side. There's going to be noise from everybody. Our moms, dads, uncles, aunts, friends, coworkers, whatever. Everyone has an opinion, right? That's fine. You could take a few good things. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's healthy. But at the end of the day, it's your family. It's your wife. How do you guys respond to each other? So I just think that there's a lot of humility that comes with that. And going back to where when we went through our divorce, and I was brought to my knees to the lowest I've ever been, I can say now, because I can look back, that's what he needed to teach me. Both of us. We both had to do our own self-reflection, and we had to trust that he was going to, and then he absolutely did. He taught me humility. I come from a family of offense. People don't forgive easy in my family. I feel like he has softened my heart so much that I'm not saying it's easy to forgive, but it comes a lot easier for me because I see things differently. I see my wife differently, right? So he had to do all that work on me, and he had to do the same type of work on her, right? You're cutting off all the things, all the bad stuff, right? And now he's like, now you're the husband that I molded you to be. You're the wife I molded you to be. Now you guys need to be an example to your kids, and I'm giving you a little bit more of a call. I need you to be an example to other marriages in your church or in your sphere of influence, right? So that's how we look at it now.
Oh man, I love this. I love this.
That's really how we look at it now,
I love it. Because I have a question. Because you had some really powerful stuff that you talked about. Hey, we were at the door of divorce, and God stepped in and started to do the work on both of us from an individual standpoint, and then he led us back together. So now that we're led back together, we're in a position where he wants us to minister to other couples. So my question is, what are some of the buts? So the audience can know, because the Bible says that there's nothing new under the sun, right? So some of us are having some of the same experiences. And so I want to ask, what are some of the buts that you had to kick out in order to stop being in a place where you were moving but going nowhere?
Man, that's a really good question. Such a broad question, because that could speak to a lot of different things. For us personally, I think a lot of the buts go back to, for us, was childhood, or the house that we grew up in, right? Our families hold a lot of the same values. When I talk to other people, I'm like, wow, like they were like on other sides of it. We were actually pretty close when it comes to that, but of course, there's always going to be different things. So I think for us, it was, I wish I could save. I want to save money. I really wish I could do a budget, but
y'all hear this? Y'all better hear this. Go ahead.
And honestly, and this is all from experience. Like I'm not saying we noticed it right off the bat, and we just no. We're still walking through a lot of these things, right? But we're trying to do something different.
I'm moving.
Exactly. We're not, and that's all it is, I think, is noticing that something's not feeling right or going right. So guess what? That's the indication. That's the light on the dashboard. Something's going on. Let's fix it. Let's not keep driving with that light on, right? Because eventually, what happens? If you just ignore that light, it's going to stop on you. It's going to blow up on you, whatever. And regardless, monetary,
moving but going nowhere.
Exactly. And then you really can't go nowhere. So those are the kind of things that we have to acknowledge, right? But one of them is finances for us. That's been a big struggle for us in terms of, but but I want this right now. Oh, but and my mindset is more, but I'm trying to think about 10, 20 years from now. I'm trying to think about
That's the good butt, y'all.
exactly. Right. Those are however.
That's a good butt. Yeah.
Those are however.
There you go. I like it. I love it. However.
But we do get stuck in that, excuses. That's what it is. It's coming from a victimhood mentality. Oh, I can't say that to her. I can't do that with my kids. I can't,
Yeah.
And that's essentially the same as a but.
Yeah.
Man, I wish I would be, I'd have more money, but this, and this. It's a victimhood mentality. That's really what it is. And that's really what you need to kick out is that, but it doesn't have to be like that. I don't have to continue. Me and my wife don't have to continue treating each other like that. Yeah. Somebody has to go low at some point, right?
Yeah.
And again, I'm calling out all the husbands out there. Like, it should start with us. We're the leader of the house, especially if you got kids. Yeah. That's what they're getting taught.
Yeah.
And then we get mad when later on, or we're kind of like, well, how come they didn't? You never taught them, right?
Yeah. Or because of what you taught them, because of what you taught them. And that brings me to you talked about some of the childhood, some of our childhood experiences. What I mean by that is some of the ways that our households taught us how to be, right. I want to make sure that you all understand that we're not saying that our parents was wrong,
not at all,
or disregard the stuff that our parents taught us, because my mother taught me well. Let me say that. And I know I've met his parents, they taught him well. However, this is not a but, this is a however. Right. Some of the things that we were taught coming up, it worked for that day.
Yep.
Not today. Right? It worked for that day in that household, not today in this household. And so what we have to do is we have to adjust.
Yes.
We have to adjust, because I remember me personally, I was real strict on adhering to the principles and the morals and the values and all of these things that I was taught, that my mother taught in my household when we were growing up, only to find out that some of that stuff was not helpful for today. What did I just say? I was moving from a dad standpoint, but going nowhere. And I had to relearn, right? I had to unlearn some stuff and relearn how to father my children. And that was one of the greatest liberations for me, to learn how to father my children. Now, don't get it twisted. I was still able to mix some of the ingredients my mother taught me.
Yes. Absolutely.
I was still able to.
Great ingredients in there, right?
Yeah. But some of the other stuff I had to say, okay, I need to put this to the side, because that doesn't go. That'll have our household not going anywhere in this day and time. Go ahead.
And I want to speak to that, because I know that's one of those issues that you could feel guilty about. Yeah. Believe me, I've been there.
Yeah.
You feel guilty about it. Again, like you mentioned, my parents been married 40 something years now. Yeah. Long time.
That's a long time.
And they've showed us what a marriage looks like. Right. Doesn't negate the fact that what they saw and learned growing up, that there's some things in there that, you know what, maybe, like you said, may not be the best way to approach it, whatever it is. And I'm talking anything, whether it's communication, the way you argue, finances, intimacy, whatever it is. I'm just saying you can always take some of the recipe, some of the ingredients, right? But it's okay if you don't put all of them in there, right? Because we live and we learn. And adjustment is big. I like that word you use, adjustment. But I just want to take that off of anybody thinking about like that guilty. Well, my parents did it like this. Yeah. Well, if we don't raise our kids the way that they did, or if they have something to say, okay, well, they have something to say. But again, it goes back to my home and I'm not saying mine, our collectively, me and my wife, because she gets just as much a say as I do. That's right. But there's such a connection there. when you guys both agree on how you want to manage your finances. Your kids. What am I saying? Discipline your kids.
Yes.
Whatever it is, you're making the decision, right?
Yeah.
So much less pressure off of that. So I just want to take that off of you. If that's something that you struggle with, well, my mom's going to say something, my dad's going to say something. Yeah. Unfortunately, they are, but they're not in your marriage anymore, right?
That's right. That's right.
You're to leave and cleave, and now it's you and your wife. And if you're one of those spouses that on the other side of it that doesn't feel like they're being acknowledged or heard, because the other one is just, nope, this is how this is, I would really highly advise you guys to talk to somebody that can kind of
a coach,
absolutely, that can bring that out, though,
a coach,
because that needs to get talked about. It's hard to settle your own disagreements, right? You need.
But I used to be that way. I used to be that.
Absolutely.
I used to be that guy in my household years ago. What I say goes. What I say goes. And me and my ex-wife, we clashed a lot because of that. And then she had gotten to a place where this is how she combated me against that, right? Whatever I would tell the kids to do, when I left, she purposely have them do the opposite.
Good cop, bad cop.
Right away.
Yep.
And I was the bad. I would be the bad cop.
Yeah, we did that for years.
Right away. And I didn't realize till after the fact that she was doing that because of my stubbornness and my lack of willingness to adjust, my lack of willingness to hear her, my lack of willingness, like you were saying, it's both of us raising these kids in this household. And I never understood that. I never understood why she was going against me. Why our marriage is always in trouble due to something that happened with the kids. Our marriage wasn't even in trouble with a whole lot of other stuff. It was in trouble with the way that we raised the kids or the way that the household was being ran. Because again, like I said, it was the way that I was raised, what I say go and all that kind of stuff. And that's just not the way. That's just not the way that a household should be ran. Because everybody has a voice. It doesn't necessarily mean that the children get to dictate what goes on in the house. However, you still got a voice. I want you to still be able to say how you feel.
Absolutely. What you say matters to me.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It holds very much the same value as something that I have.
Yep.
But that's where it comes in. Let's talk about that. Let's not fight about it. Let's not, okay, I'll hear you out, but ultimately I'm going to have, no.
Yeah.
Let's agree. Because when there's agreement, the moods are pretty good, right?
And what they say in the scriptures, and how can two walk together unless they agree?
That's right. So I want to get back to something you said, which I like, because it just brought up a thought. We're getting ready to start our small group season coming up next week. And I can't wait, because it's new couples, new issues. We all got them. And it's an opportunity to talk about them. And our only hope is that somebody does something different.
Kick their butt out. Somebody kick the butt out.
Yes. But they do something different, because whatever they're doing, right? They're there for a reason, trying to figure out why we're just butting heads at this issue. Okay, well, usually that takes, just like the little toy I said that's bumping into the wall, turn it just a little bit, right? Yep. Now it has a different trajectory. But adjustment, that's a big word. And the reason I say that is because you said something earlier. We get younger couples with little kids. We get older couples. Kids are kind of grown. And we've had couples that kids are out of the house. Just like you said, those are different seasons of life, right? So I look at our kids, my son's going to be 20, my daughter's going to be 13 next week. When they were little, I needed to serve my wife in a different way, right? Because kids, let's be real, kids, little kids, babies, toddlers, they come with a lot of
toys,
stress, just a lot, right?
Toys.
There's a lot that needs to attention, right? So therefore, you're kind of, going everywhere all at once, right? And you need to work. Let's say you come home, food, bills, all the same stuff is there.
Baths.
Baths, right? All these things, school, and whatever it
Homework.
is. But all of these things, it's a hard season, right? Well, then fast forward 15, 20 years, right? That's kind of where we are. Life's a lot different for us. It's a lot calmer for us in certain areas. We don't have to worry about them changing diaper, or we don't have to worry about changing diapers anymore, making bottles anymore, right? They're a little more self-sufficient. So it's almost like you get a break, right? And we hear so many of those couples going crazy and stressed out, and I get it. Doesn't mean you can't have that connection throughout that time. And that's why, again, certain things, hey, let's talk about this. Maybe you could do this. Maybe you could do this, right? Then you got those couples that, like you said, I don't know what the percentage is. It's pretty high, though.
It's pretty high.
Divorce rate. When kids leave the house. It's funny because these people can't wait for that sometimes, right? There's those moments where you just can't wait to get to that point. But some of these people will tell you, "Ooh, no, I would give anything to take it back to that," right? So I just mean to say it's different seasons of life. And therefore you're going to have to adjust to the way that you're showing up for your wife, for your kids, for extracurricular things. Sometimes you got to cut them off. Me and my wife are blessed right now to be able to do stuff. Kids are, one of the kids out of sports now. So it's not so, okay, every day there's practice and there's this and that, right? So now we get to pour a little bit more into our ministry, into small groups or whatever. So life's changing at all times. The biggest one, though, is the empty nest stage. We're not there yet. But what I'm trying to do now is prepare for that, because we've heard so many stories of you put so much time and effort into the kids. Mainly that's the kids. And a lot of times it's the wife, right? Typical husband's always out working all these hours. Wife's taking care of a lot of the kids and all this and that. If you're not dating in that time, if you're not taking the time to spend together to, like they say, keep dating your wife, keep pursuing her. If you're not doing that, guess what? When those kids leave, when that priority leaves, and you guys are like strangers now, like, well, what do we do? How do we talk? How do we go on a date and have conversation? How do we hang out at the house together? Do you know what I'm saying? So these are the things you have to look ahead for and adjust, because it's going to come. And so those are the things to keep in your mind. Like, it's not going to be like this forever. If it is a tough season, okay, that could be a true statement, but we're not going to let it defeat us. And we're going to start kind of preparing for the next season. So
I like that.
I just think adjustment is a big deal, because I'm not the same husband I was in my 20s. I'm in my 40s now. And so my needs are a lot different. So in our small group, we do the 5 love languages, right? And the funny thing is every semester we take it seems to shift a little bit. And just like I said, I used to be a physical touch and acts of service and, and from my 20s to my 40s now, guess what? Those have changed. I'm sometimes there's, I can't even think of the other ones. Quality time. That's always a big one. That's probably the top of my list right now. Words of affirmation is probably my second, if not my top. I didn't really care about that before, but now, oh man, if I do something, I would love to hear good job. I would love to hear I'm proud of you, right? So I just think that's good for us, because we constantly have a chance to check in on our spouse and see what they're needing in this season. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
And that's something I absolutely would pound the table for couples out there to do, is if you're feeling disconnected, come together, have a talk about what you're needing in this season. Because other than that, you're just expecting that they're going to be okay, or you're just what do they call it? Like, you're just thinking, they're probably fine. Everything's okay. So,
and more often than not, when we use that, they fine, everything's okay terminology, it's usually not.
Absolutely.
And they're usually not fine. And so I appreciate the fact that we having this conversation about, you got to pay attention. You got to be willing to adjust. You have to be willing to sacrifice. You have to be willing to do something different.
And then what do you do? Like you said, you're going to move after
yes,
that.
you're going to start
Don't
moving.
just hear it, right? Don't just go to church on Sunday and keep the word to yourself. We're supposed to spread it, right?
Yep.
So if you hear some tools, some information from a coach, from
coaches,
now it's your turn to apply it. Apply that to your marriage.
Do something. Somebody said,
change it.
What did they say? Don't just stand there, do something.
That's right.
But here's what we do. Don't just do something, stand there. That's what we do. And we wonder why we ain't moving. We just stand there and we wonder why we're not moving. And frustration is all, bitterness, resentment, all that. We have all that set up. Yeah. And it's because we're not doing the things that we need to be doing. Whether it's from purpose, a career standpoint, or your relationships at home. Because your strongest relationships outside of God, your strongest and most important relationships outside of God is the house that you live in. Period. If anything is coming out, it's coming before them, you moving but going nowhere. And so this podcast is designed to have some conversations around what are some of the things that you're doing in terms of moving and you feel like you're going nowhere. Whether it's in your relationships at home or from a career standpoint or a purpose standpoint. We would love to have some conversations with you all around that, because the goal, right? The goal for Kick Your Butt Out is to get people moving in their purpose, get people moving in their calling, get people doing what they have been purposed and created to do. Because at the end of the day, if you still here on this earth, you have purpose. You're supposed to be doing something. And it ain't just standing there, right? It's not just standing there. You are supposed to be doing something. So again, this is an honor and a pleasure and a privilege. Me and Pete can go on and on because we chops it up like this regularly. Trust me.
Absolutely.
And we could go on and on about this, but we just want to hear what you all think. What are some of the things that you all are experiencing and going through that we possibly could assist and help you with? So again, we would love for y'all to tune in to Kick Your Butt Out and just have some conversations around this. If you need some help outside of this podcast, you can reach out to any one of us, and we'd be more than willing to do what we can to assist you in your walk. Before we go, is there any last words of encouragement you may want to put out there, Coach Pete?
Don't give up.
Right.
Like, I know that sounds very cliche, but don't give up. There's always another way to look at something.
Yeah.
Always. And I know I come from a big, the aspect of marriage and happiness and joy. It's possible. Yeah, but my wife or my husband, but let's talk about it. Let's talk about what we're doing and how we're showing up first. And then let's talk about things that could change, right? Just like Paul said, Coach Paul, if you needed to talk about something, if you wanted to bring up an issue just to get a little bit of, I don't know, just an answer or just a little bit of perspective on something, you could reach out. My Instagram, it's PB_relationship coaching. Throw a question at me.
Yeah.
Throw a problem at me. I would love to just I may not know the answer, but you know what? We could talk about it.
We're going to find it.
Absolutely.
We might not have the answer, but we're going to find it.
But that's the main thing, is don't just suffer in silence and sit there and just think that's it for me. Whether it is job related or your marriage or your kids, whatever, there's always another way to look at it. And there's always another step to move.
Yes.
And let's talk about it. Though. Let's have a conversation.
That's the name of their small group. Let's talk about it. Anyway, like he said, stop suffering in silence. I love that. Stop suffering in silence. You do not have to. Last but not least, I want to say what I always say, and I strongly encourage you to hear this with your thought process rather than your ears, because it goes in one and out the other. And that is, if you're looking for a butt, it's going to always be easy to find one. And that, my friends, is a promise. This is your hip hop relationship and recovery coach Paul with Coach Pete. We love y'all, and nothing y'all can do about it. Until next time, y'all be well. Do the next right thing so that you can move and go somewhere. God bless you all, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.